Good night and welcome to this webinar. Sorry for the late start. You have to give credit for all those YouTubers who put up their videos because, you know, it's kind of a techie sort of job. Anyway, this was my first webinar, so I guess, and I plan to do these webinars weekly. So this was a good experience. So the other webinars would be quite straightforward. The topic is quite involved. I'm already late, but um, I just pressed this start recording button. So you could always tune in and see a recording at a later date. Okay. Um, First, let me give you a quick introduction. My name is Nevison. I've been in the field of education for over 45 years. I've been in the field of robotics and I would say technologies that assist in the educational process for over 45 years. Uh, this includes, special needs like blind students, deaf students, visually impaired, hard of hearing, what have you. But these assistive technologies uh, has been these assistive technologies, they have been around for quite a bit of time, but now things have changed dramatically, and it's very important, it's crucial to keep up with the times. And I know many of you are a bit confused about AI. Is a buzzword now, so without much ado, like I said, we're already late, let's dive in. First on the agenda is what is AI, then we go to AI and education, robotics and education, and an AI implementation for educators, something that is quite important, but we talk about that a bit later. Okay, AI is not new. Some of you in the computer field or students would remember the basic information technology diagram that involves data processing, which is input going in, arrow, you have your square, processing, then you have the arrow coming out, output. And that was the general idea. Input, processing, output. Now if we go back to this slide, you would see input and output. What is happening here is AI is simply data processing with multiple inputs and multiple outputs. The processing, however, involves uh, systems that create neurons and that sort of thing that process this information to give you output, which is answers to your questions, etc., etc. When examining some of these new technologies, it's quite important to it's quite important to let's see here. Yeah, like I said, like I was saying, when examining some of these systems, it's quite important to consider and study the history of it. AI started many years ago. Students were working on AI projects since I could remember 1980 working on some of those AI projects. But there were lots of limitations. Two basic limitations was memory, storage, because it, data processing involves lots of data, AI even more data. So storage was a big issue. And then what we had was the problem of, processing, right? The problem of processing. However, as you will see in the notes, some of these problems, well, both of these problems were solved lately. Data was handled differently. With video games, um, those graphic cards that hold lots of memory became popular, and then the great idea came of using that memory to hold and analyze data. So instead of one bit, you had lots of pixels, and each pixel have different attributes. So lots of data. That's all the problem with storage. The problem of processing, well, it hasn't really been solved as yet, but that's one of the limitations, because you must have heard about the large amount of data, what do you call them, those big data storage companies that utilize enormous amount of power. They have hundreds, thousands of computers running simultaneously doing the processing. So together with that, they had new techniques in what we call this slide is okay. Just excuse me 1 second. I'm seeing the problem here with the display. Jason, yes, I make camera on. Watch this. So when I press this, what do you do? Yes, no. I'm gonna use all cover again. So when I use all cover, Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry about the interruption. Like I said earlier, this is my first webinar. I plan to do a whole lot of educational webinars to show show up some of the systems that can benefit many of the youths out there. So, coming back to the history of AI, we have to remember the history of another booming industry. Some of you may not have been around at the time, but the dot-com boom, dot-com boom. That was when websites just came on the market. The buzzword was websites, and there were lots of um, spin-offs from these websites, graphics, lots of apps, software, and then it could not have been sustained because not everybody could be using our websites. So eventually the bubble would burst, and that's exactly what happened. And of course, websites and website businesses are still around and booming, but it wasn't as explosive as it reached a peak, and then that was it. Same thing could happen with AI. So we have to watch and see, because right now you have lots of AI applications that are really very trivial and unnecessary, like deep fakes and those sort of spin-offs from AI that produces fake videos. And you know if there's a if, if there's a AI bust right now, there's an AI boom, then a lot of those spin-offs will not survive. So that's where history of these technologies are quite important. So that's the key point that I would like to make here is in this webinar is the fact that AI is very useful, or is a perfect technology for education, for educators, but we eventually get to that slide. And this this webinar is being recorded, so I would do some editing, get rid of some of the pauses, and you will be able to see it on YouTube without having all these interruptions. But like I said, you would have to excuse me for this first presentation, where the tools and everything else was a bit not very familiar. So, getting back to AI. there's a point I'd like to make here concerning our educational system. Well, concerning AI in education, and like from the topic, you may be wondering, the robots, the AI for that. Well, those are sad robots. But the same would apply to students who are forgotten as far as the development of the requirements needed to survive in a AI world. Well, maths, of course, the maths. A long time ago, I heard, you know, there's a new math, something called new math and that sort of thing. But I think what is really needed is a new math, because the technology has improved tremendously over the years, but the math is still quite similar in content and application or delivery. So, in, in, in other seminar webinars or in the future, I will explain or outline some of the content, a new math syllabus or additional math topics. A new math syllabus should include, um, the same goes for some of the practical, um, the practical topics that should be yeah, executed or delivered, and it all comes down to STEM or STEAM: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. We would now is the time when when STEAM is extremely relevant. Why? 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 Why is AI so important in education today? Well, AI is used to develop what we call expert systems. You know, I personally started working on an educational expert system about over 20 years ago, and it evolved into a website that I would be introducing new followers to. It's called Your Expert Tutor, in short, youret.com. And you know, I've been asked the question, who's the expert? You know, because the site covers lots of topics. For example, preschool, SDA, electronics, etc., etc., robotics. So I'm been asked the question, who's the expert? And the answer really is AI, the expert system, because like I mentioned earlier, AI involves a lot of input, a special type of processing, multiple processing, and a lot of output that goes and that is processed, again forming neurons, and like I said, all that would have to be a separate weapon. So, okay, coming back to expert systems, one of the problems we have in the educational scenario today is students falling through the cracks. That's because some of them have different learning styles and they don't pick up as fast. Some of them have learning disabilities, etc., etc. Um, with one teacher conducting a class with approximately 20 students doing approximately 6 topics, 6 subjects, 4 subjects, what have you. It's almost impossible to keep track of every student, how they're progressing, what, and detecting what might be uh, a special problem or that sort of thing. So, solution for a partial solution to that problem would be one teacher per student. Now that would be great. One student, one teacher. But that is not practical. Um, private school or ministry using that approach, they, they will go bankrupt. But that's where the AI, the expert system comes in. The expert system, the role of an expert system is to to perform the job of an expert, like a teacher sort of thing. So imagine each student having their own laptop, and on each laptop they can access expert system or teacher, well, an expert system which would be their teacher on a particular topic. And why this would be quite interesting is because that teacher would know everything about the student from diagnostics and previous assignments and quizzes, that sort of thing. So that's one of the great benefits of AI. So we have to, we must be conscious of when we talk about AI in education, two parts, two sides of AI in education. Using AI, using the system to improve on education. And the other part of AI in education is training and developing children to be developers and designers of AI systems. And like in the previous slide, you would realize that require a lot of math, logic. In other words, let's look at what are the big issues with AI. One, data. You need what you call big data, a tremendous amount of data. There are some people who, there's an article where people are getting, you know, paranoid from just having to take so many pictures to provide content by AI system because it's a, like I said, enormous amount of data and there's privacy concerns, etc. And the other, so to be a data developer, uh, to be an AI developer, data, knowing everything about data is crucial. You need to train about, training should involve things like data security, data storage, and information. Like I said, information technology is, that's just what it is, except that now it's on a bigger scale. And the other big issue with AI is the power requirements running all those computers in those big data storage warehouses, what have you. And so technology, as far as electronics and power supplies, power, energy, that's anything along with the energy would suffice. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, this brings us to the end of this presentation, which will be formatted and edited for, for later viewing. And I should go back to this point about rebuttals before I close off here. Okay, what this is telling me is STEAM, STEAM, STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Or STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. I use the updated version for, for the version where art is applied, because I think art is so crucial in our in, in STEM as well as in life processes involving engineering technology. With robotics, a lot of simple concepts that appear difficult to many of the students out there. I encountered, for example, ratios. You build in something that is 16 times the size of something else. You need that ratio. You need to maintain that ratio. And that will involve stuff like measurement. Then there are, applications like putting things together, which will involve logic. All skills are combined into one. Doing STEM, because STEM is a doing robotics because STEM is a perfect example. Robotics is a perfect example of perfect application demonstrating the usefulness of STEM or STEAM. So, students or educators must focus a lot on STEM, STEAM, because we come across, we already way behind as far as some of the topics that children need to be familiar with to cope with AI. And within the, the foreseeable future, those things that we think are so commonplace, not commonplace, but are so stable, could change. For example, in the previous slide, what what was unconceivable is now being researched with great prospects, and that is going back from digital to analog, which, the reason we have computers now is we switch from analog, small computers and powerful computers, is because we switch from analog to digital. Now they're going back to the same analog but treating it differently, where they have more control. So things change a lot. The next thing is we are accustomed with normal computing, and quantum computing is on the horizon. What is important in all of this change is the fact that skills the skill set required are very predictable. To to be good in any new technology, let's say quantum computing, right? To be comfortable with things like new technology, it's quite useful to be familiar with the concepts, and regardless of what new technology come aboard, once we understand the concepts like so easily demonstrated in some STEAM projects, then we be ready and all geared up for the future. Well, Chair, once we as educators do our part. Okay, thank you for viewing. Please follow and keep track of other webinars, and as well as part 2, the continuation of this webinar. Please note that to apologize for all the interruptions and know that they will only get better as far as the presentation is concerned, because like I said, you have to give credit to those YouTubers. It's it's a tough job. Don't quit your day job. Okay, good night and stay up.